Welcome back to another episode of Psycosmos. Thank you for joining me. This is Dr. Matt. I am going to be sharing and showcasing the return of Christ. You might be confused if you're a standard typical Christian and you're looking at a picture of a brain right now, but this is all part and parcel. I do have a script. I am going to be reading from that script momentarily, but I do want to make a couple of just brief announcements. If you're interested in learning more about this, I'm going to be making this video slightly brief. It'll hopefully be about 15 to 20 minutes long. If you want to learn more information, guys, this is how I live. All right, so I don't work another job. This is my job, and I have noticed, government shutdown, everything. I understand that money is tight. However, if there's any way that you guys can support me, either by joining my school, my online university, you can sign up for my astrology and psychology AI app, which also does help you train with this sacred secretion process, the inner Christ process, the alchemical process, Kundalini awakening, inner alchemy, Nadon, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of different names for it. I'm going to showcase it to you here. If you want to learn more information and you want all of the correct details on how you can go step by step with this, I do have now on my online university my consciousness activation masterclasses. I have worked very tirelessly with my team for well over a decade. It's been like 12 or 13 years, guys, since we started delving into the depths of esotericism, learning more about this inner alchemical cycle. Nobody has the information like we do. That doesn't mean that everybody's wrong. I don't like to attack other people, but I've seen so many other grifters and scam artists that think that they know about this process and they don't. I'm going to give you a lot of science today. I'm going to give you a lot of information you may not have heard today. And I'm hoping in this to showcase and prove to you guys, I know not only that I know what I'm talking about, but that I do need the assistance, right? There are people who are selling books and courses, but they're not the right information. I don't care if, people decide to go that route. That's cool. But I am probably the only person in the world who's tested this. In my PhD dissertation for my PhD in psychology, in my methods and findings, I worked with over 50 people, all of which were clients, all of which signed the proper documentation and worked with me under a coaching mechanism where we walked people through this process and we saw amazing results. Okay, so this is all scientifically backed and proven via my work. All right, you can write it in a book or you can actually go out and prove it and do it for people. And I don't really care about the negativity anymore. I want to stay positive, but I do need the support and I need the assistance because this is how I live, this is how I make money, and people come and go, clients come and go, and I pride myself in that, right? You should only have to work with me for like 6 months before you can really master this process. So we're going to get into it. In this video, I'm going to guide you through the advanced Christos sacred secretion inner alchemy cycle, a step-by-step method for activating your body's natural renewal systems. Now, if you've seen my beginner videos, there's tons of videos on my YouTube channel already for free. You guys can go and watch it. You don't have to, subscribe or pay me or anything like that, but, the information's there. But if you're looking to get this in a trainable system and work with somebody so you can actually get the results that you like, or if you need assistance in your life and you need somebody who can work with you in a one-on-one setting, I have tons of qualifications to be able to do this. Tons. All right, so don't fall for the other people. If you've seen all those videos already, then you know how to find your timing windows potentially. If not, we'll talk about that. They're in the courses on the online school. Go check that out. This is where we're going to go deeper into the science, the practices, and the ancient archetypes behind the process. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how to prepare, what to do during your timing window, and how to integrate everything afterwards. So, why does this matter? Because most of us have heard of circadian rhythms and infradian rhythms, okay? It's our body's internal clocks. But there are bigger, slower rhythms too, monthly, seasonal, and even lunar cycles to our existence as human beings, okay? When you align your habits with these natural rhythms, something powerful happens. Your hormones, your brain chemistry, your sleep cycles, even your immune system begin to all sync up with each other. Now, again, I probably look a little bummy today. I'm 31 years old, all right? I'm as old as Charlie Kirk, who just recently passed away. And as my generation continues to flourish and continues to come out with really great information and do good works, we are going to get targeted by the elites. That's just what's going to happen because we have We're the Pluto and Scorpio generation. We're here to break cycles. We're here to bring the real wisdom, the real change to the world. And the powers that be don't want us alive. Okay, I'm just going to put, my life has been threatened multiple times. I have been stalked. I've been harassed. People have tried to shut down my business time and time again. And it has not worked. I'm still here standing strong, trying to provide this information for you guys. This is not some kind of mamby-pamby, easygoing thing. This is my life at stake, all right? And I'm bringing this information to you knowing that, all right? So if you guys, I have free trials. Go check out all my stuff. I'm trying to help, but this is how I live. So please consider supporting me, guys. I can't stress this enough. The sacred secretion process, okay, which in my dissertation I called the chrism hypothesis, combines modern science with timing wisdom to harness those rhythms. It's not about dogma. It's about creating the conditions for your own body and mind to repair, reset, and awaken itself, okay? So this is very heavily centered on your nervous system because that is your inner light supercommunication highway. That is essentially the light within you from God, okay? It's your nervous system, and we're going to get into this. So your neuroendocrine system, which is the hypothalamus, pituitary, pineal glands, the gonads, this all coordinates energy, mood, and repair. When you conserve and time your practices, you give these axes a chance to rejuvenate, all right? Cerebrospinal fluid and exosomes. Nobody ever talks about exosomes. That's what the rich people talk about. Lots of multimillionaires are into exosomal stimulation because it's extremely expensive. Well, what if I could tell you that the reason that they have that as a doctoral, medical, clinical thing that you can participate in and pay lots of money into, what if I could tell you that you could do that for free, all on your own? Well, of course it's not for free. You got to pay for like the healthy food and everything else. But yeah, so sunrise and sunset light set your master clock. Red and near infrared light energizes your cells. All of these are real, measurable, scientific, clinical processes. The sacred secretion process simply strings them together in the right order and provides it for free, essentially, for you. So here's the essential 13-step process in this. Number one, there's a signal, and this maps perfectly with the stories of Christ. It maps perfectly with a lot of other stories like Krishna or Neja or Odin or tons of other figures, Ra and Horus from Egyptian mythologies, Dionysus, okay? There's Mithras. There's so many stories that are somewhat similar to this, and I'm going to explain what it is. Essentially, it's this. First, you get a signal, all right? How many of you have read those books? I'm not going to name them. How many of you have seen the apparent gurus and mystics claim that the claustrum secretes an oil? The claustrum. It's the claustrum, guys. It is not the claustrum. Already, we are off to a bad start. Oh, but Santa Claus and my loose etymological ties. It has nothing really to do with the necessarily the oil. They call it the oil. It's really endocrine related, maybe that's the right word, endocrine related chemical release from the pituitary gland, which is the mother gland, all right? It's the divine substance from the mother, which is on the physical matter, the mother section of creation. You have the energetic stimulus, which is the more paternal, fatherly figure. Then you have the chemical stimulus, which is the motherly. This is the sacred marriage, right? The alchemical marriage, the combination of the two halves. You need to understand this. I promise I'm going to get to the visual with the brain guy here in a second. So first you get the signal, just like when Gabriel came down and told Mary she was pregnant. Mary did not have sex to get pregnant. So there is no seed that is released from the brain. There are some chemicals for sure, but what happens is it's called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. Now keep in mind, chiasmatic has CH like Christ, just like the choroid plexus, or a lot of other words like cholesterol is another one. You guys remember like I think it was in the 80s, they did the whole attack on cholesterol. There was a reason for that. And it's because anything that starts with a CH, like suprachiasmatic nucleus, has CH in it, oftentimes leads back to this Christ-like process in our body, okay? So first is a signal. This is the 13 stages because Jesus was number 13, so this is what I put it in. Then you have conception, all right? Then you have the birth. Then you have the descent. Then you have the temptation. Then you have the integration at the navel. Then you have the heart gathering, the pressing at the neck, the the fragmentation, the suspension at the base of the skull, the burial in the ventricles, the resurrection in the pineal and the thalamus, and then the ascension throughout the whole body. This is the basic 13 steps. Again, you want the full scope of that, go join my networks. I have 40 plus people, 45-ish, in my online university. It's quite engaging, or at least I'd like for more people to get engaged with it. It's really interesting, and I want more people to be a part of this amazing process. I've been able to do this for myself and manifest tons of things. I've manifested wonderful things in my life through this, and I know that you can too. So each stage of this 13-step process is both an anatomical event and an archetypal chapter in an age-old story of death and rebirth. Okay, so now this is how we activate it. Number one, preparation. Okay, you have to prepare in the 2 days before your window, then the culmination during the peak days during your window, and then the integration, which is the days following your window. There are other people who are on a 7-step model. It was a 3-step model. I created the 7-step model. Other people stole it. All right, if you watched other people, I'm not super outlandish with saying that, but if you go and you do the paper trail, guys, you can watch all my videos are on other people's channels. I did podcasts with them, etc. I'm not like, by the way, I'm not like upset about this. It's just I don't get the credit, and when you don't get the right credit, then other people take credit for your work and they sell their books, they sell their courses, and then I don't make any money. All right, so I was really one of the major contributors to this. I was the one who brought the spleen to the forefront of this process. That's a super important organ in this whole process. And don't worry if you've had organs removed. That's not as important, okay? What is important is that you understand that the body is a constantly evolving, cyclical, like symbiotic, thing between the mind and the body, and it is constantly reworking itself to heal. All right. So what we're going to do is now I'm going to focus a little bit more on what the process itself is. This is the return of Christ, essentially. Okay. The external light, whether it feeds in through the eyes, or if you don't have working eyes, or if you're blind, let's say, it would feed in through your skin. Your skin still picks up on those electromagnetic signals. Now you see the barrier on the outside of the body. This is like your cerebrospinal fluid barrier. And you have it for like a vast majority of like interconnecting, interweaving pathways. This is essentially the pathway of what you would call the Holy Spirit. All right. And when you study Kabbalah, when you study tarot, when you study astrology, when you study the inner alchemy, and you understand how they all combine together, this process makes a lot more sense. So this is how it works. You get a signal, and that signal enters into your eye. It awakens and activates the claustrum, which then activates the inner thalamus. Okay, that's the exact process. Then the inner thalamus with the pituitary and the pineal gland, specifically the pituitary, that releases endocrinetic specific chemicals that your body's going to need for this process. So the claustrum does not secrete an ooze or secrete an oil or anything like that. It doesn't do that. All right, you have the higher brain and the lower brain. And the higher brain is the one that kind of starts this process, and then the lower brain has to start creating the chemical and signal-based, responses. Then what happens is it goes from the claustrum, which is just that little patch. It's almost like a little satellite, right? Then from the claustrum down, you've got that inner thalamus. It starts getting activated, and it goes into the body. Now, this is the celiac ganglion plexus, the solar plexus. You can see the kidneys are here on the left and the right-hand side. This is like your lower mind, all right? This is your gut brain, all right? Your gut brain is super important, and this is where most of the magic happens. You've got a lot of different lipids and different chemicals that are released from the many different major organs in the body. For example, the adrenals, they release some things from the kidneys. The liver releases some things. The spleen releases some things, specifically in the corpuscles of the spleen. Again, I don't want to go like super heavy. If you really want the science of it and all that, you can go and join my courses. But the reality of this is that the celiac ganglion, which is kind of like the central lower computer of the body, which would be a very scientific and very easy, simple way to explain it, it basically starts to work its magic and move all of the different chemicals and things that it requires all through the different major vesicles of the body. And this is backed by science, okay? So this is very well seen when you can put all the puzzle pieces together, like my, massive dissertation that I wrote on this. then you start to see how everything aligns. So there's a lot of different things here. There's, again, exosomes. That's a really big one. Lipid nanoparticles. That's another big one. There's one, I can't remember the name. It starts with a G, but it's like an anti-aging property, and it's based off of light signals. Okay, so your hormones are very important in this process, which is why there's been an attack on both male and female hormones. They're trying to rip us out of this process, and our bodies are desperately fighting back for renewal. All right, so once this very beautiful interconnected lower body starts to pull all the necessary requirements, which is then guided by things like the cerebrospinal pathway fluid. I saw one guy, again, I won't name him, but he's like, yeah, the sacred secretion, this whole inner Christ nonsense, it's just cerebrospinal fluid. That's all it is. No, it's not. Cerebrospinal fluid is the Jordan River. That's the mover of it. Okay, that's the pathway that it takes. And yes, there are some chemicals that are within the CSF that assist with this entire process that, help move a lot of the properties around and supercharge it electromagnetically and whatnot. But no, it is not the end all be all of this. Okay, it's not the CSF itself. Now, the CSF at the end of it is one of the main contributors to what we receive. It is the cup runneth over. But it's not the central oil that's being created. The oil itself is again a combination of lipids, exosomes, cholesterol. It's like a whole combination of essentially physical chemicals. But then what happens is those physical chemicals fall down into the coccygeal sacrum, and they get supercharged, just like Jesus wandering out in the desert for the 40 days and 40 nights. Now, this is where Jesus meets the first temptation, and this is where it kind of gestates. And there's tons of science that shows that there is electromagnetic charge that comes from the base of the spine and the genital region of the body. Okay, so you basically have the gut microbiome, the solar plexus, the inner child, or in Nadon, in Chinese Nadon, this would be called the immortal child. This, I guess you could maybe call it a magnetic substance. It starts to harbor and bring in all the proper chemicals like the 12 disciples, and then it goes out into the forest, down into the area of the darkness, the wilderness, to fight Satan, basically. After it gets supercharged, it goes back up to Mount Tabor, which is the navel, and it starts to, if you do the processes right, it can just die down there if you let it. But if you harbor the inner child, okay, then you bring the substance up through all of the proper vagal passageways, the ganglions, etc., celiac ganglion. All of them start to rise, and then eventually it gets into that heart space area. And again, this is through the Sushumna, which is the central column, the middle path. All right. Only through having sound emotions, having sound ideas and energy, eating the right foods, drinking really good water, and just kind of staying positive and doing the exercises and stretches necessary, then you'll get out of the literal hellscape looking down here, and you'll start to raise and ascend it. Now, here's a big Kabbalistic secret. The higher mind and the higher part of the body is a reflection, and the lower mind and the lower part of the body is a reflection. That's why if I go back to like a cross section of the brain, if I can find one here, I think it's here, you'll see like the lower part here, like the interweaving little maze that you have in the cerebellum on the lower brain looks very much like the intestines, and the lungs look very much like the top of the brain, right? And also kind of vice versa too. There's like a lot of secrets here, but then that inner thalamus, that inner chamber, is very much significant to the inner midpoint where the solar plexus is. So it's as above, so below. All right, so the as above is really a reflection of the so below. You have 12 ribs and you have 12 cranial nerves, as an example. Okay, it's a reflection, truthfully. And so because of that, the body and the mind have to be in sync with each other, and the soul is really the thing that's at the center of that. The soul is the electricity and the energy that runs through your nervous system. It's constantly working as it pumps your heart and it beats your heart, right? And then you have the diaphragm, which is like the canopy, the dome, okay, or the firmament, right? So really in this model, when you study all the necessary requirements, you understand that the brain is essentially like the big ball of light in the sky, like the sun, or like how we imagine God to be. And then the body is really the realm of existence, with the heart, which is above the canopy, above that firmament in the inner body, with the heart being the sun and the spleen more than likely being the moon. Now, with all of that being said, there's a lot of, obviously there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. But what I'm going to showcase to you is how this affects our world today. Now, as we're all raising our frequency, and then of course, also you have to lower your frequency too, because your body also needs that lower frequency vibration in order to heal and evolve and expand properly. You need low frequency for hormonal balance, and you need high frequency for brain balance. Okay, so with all these people, again, they're like high vibes, high vibes. No. Like during ovulation, as a woman, as an example, that's where you should be high vibes. That's where you should avoid sex unless you're trying to make a child. That's where you should eat light and healthy. That's where you should get your exercise. But during menstruation, if you do all that stuff, if you fast during menstruation, it's horrible for you. You should actually eat meat products really well, not processed, like really well put together butcher shop style steaks. There's tons of science, guys. Don't come at me with the veganism and the vegetarianism. Actually, don't come at me at all. If you don't agree with any of this stuff, that's totally okay. Don't bother leaving a comment. I'm not going to respond. I'm not going to read it. I don't care. I have proven this time and time again. I've actually worked hands-on. People have trusted me from a coaching and even a psychological standpoint to help them with this. If you have not put in that same level of work and you just watched a few videos and you've studied this for a year or two, I'm not saying that your opinion doesn't matter. I'm saying it's the way you word it. I get tons of comments every day that's like, well, actually, this is wrong because I watched one video on it. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. Your body does require meat products or at least eggs, dairy. Like it requires a little bit of that. And I have a whole video on this. It's called Lunar and Solar Foods. Go check that out. You need both. All right. Solar foods are like fruits and veggies and stuff like that. Those are required and necessary for the high frequency aspect. But the low frequency aspect also is required and necessary, and you need those vitamins and minerals, and you can't just supplement from plant-based products. Yes, I wish that the way that we slaughter animals was a lot better. Yes. Okay, but Jesus ate fish, so don't come at me. I already know what I'm talking about. Okay, every single one of these prophets, except maybe the Hindus and maybe the Buddhists, they're like maybe the only group outside which talks about like the fact that you shouldn't eat meat. Okay, they're the only group that says that, and it's a stretch in my opinion. Scientifically, it's a stretch. Okay, so during menstruation, it's been proven by multiple case studies that eating a steak or eating like high quality meat product that isn't like processed and doesn't have low frequency in it, like the fear and everything from the animal, is actually very good for the woman. Okay, so that, and the man has the same exact thing. It's when the moon enters the opposite sign from his sun sign. So I'm a Cancer. When the moon enters Cancer, I'm going to be eating healthy. When the moon enters Capricorn, that's where I know that I can ground and I can get that energy back into my body. It is a symbiotic relationship. Anybody who doesn't understand this doesn't know what the hell they're talking about, and they're just trying to sell you on crap, okay? So anyway, the inner thalamus is like the intersection of the body, and so basically it's a higher reflection and a lower reflection communicating with each other and balancing each other out. Okay, you guys understand that? Does that make some sense here? So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at what you need: sleep quality, good positive light exposure, good dieting meals, and fast time windows. Okay, so don't fast during your menstruation. You can fast for one day during your ovulation, probably around the peak day where you're going to be really hungry, but I don't recommend women really do a lot of fasting. It's not as good for women as it is for men. Now, if you have parasites or if you're extremely overweight, that's a different story. But if you're a woman, that can really harm your hormonal regulation. For man, it's much different. It's much, much different. And again, this is where the male-female bodies are different. I know a lot of people say they're the same. And it's when the moon enters your sun sign, it's the same for women too. That is wrong. That is not correct. You can go watch my video on my YouTube about time and space mechanics, because I talk about this, whereas the masculine principle is time and the feminine principle is space. So it's based off of a timing signature for man, and it's based off of a location signature for women. It's based off of when the moon enters the sun sign for man and when the moon enters the phase of the moon, or sometimes when women don't sync up, it's a little bit different for them, which is why God gave you a physical means of understanding your cycle, which is your menstruation. Then with that, you can figure out when you ovulate as well. And during your ovulation, when the ovum is released, that is where you get the maximum potential. It makes perfect sense. Your highest frequency, your most attractive, your most fertile, everything is during that window. Anybody who doesn't understand this is not going to get it, okay? And if you want to argue with me in the comments, I'm just not going to pay attention because I've already proved this. I worked with 23 different women, all of which signed contracts. We did the moon and sun sign. It was wrong. It doesn't work. So if you're a woman and you've been misled by these other operatives that are just trying to get you to buy their books and courses when they don't know what they're talking about because they didn't put in the work. I know I'm a hater. You can call me a hater and say I'm negative. Guys, people are getting hurt by this. You can't sit here and call me a hater. It's not about that. I don't care what other people do. People will get hurt if they do this wrong. Period. End of story. That's the real truth of this. You'll fuck up your nervous system. You'll fuck up your hormones. That hurts people. These people are trying to make money hurting other people. At least we were trying to make sure that we were correct and accurate with our data before we started blasting it out to the public. And, you know, we were a little wrong. You can go back. We were saying the same thing probably about 5 years ago. Then we started actually working hands-on with people. It turns out it's very different. And people are having a lot more positive aspects to this, especially women, when they're following their fertility cycle, okay? Your mood, you want to make sure your mood is in check, your breath work, all of these things. And then, of course, any spiritual, numbers, dreams, things like that, any spiritual interactions. So remember that the sacred secretion process is not about chasing exotic experiences. This is very important. A lot of people are like, oh, I just want to activate. Like, you need to know all of the proper mechanics of this or else you're going to screw it up. And trust me, those people who are screwing it up, they are screwing it up big time. And I know because I've got their phone numbers. Shit, Divine Being Divine just texted me yesterday asking for money. All right? If you don't know who he is, he's the one who created the Hearth book. I'm not shitting on him. I'm just saying these people, I got into a big fight with Kelly Marie Kerr a couple years ago because she disagreed with me about the male-female differences. And I was like, hey, it's all cool. Like, it's whatever. And she was like, no, you're wrong. It's like, okay, fine. Then if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I'm the one working with people hands-on and putting this in a scientific format. You're the one just selling books. Sorry, not sorry. I'm just going to throw shade if I have to. But it's true. I'm sick and tired of these older people. They're older than me, and they're telling me I'm wrong. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm the one with the paper. It's not even about that. It's about the fact that I took the time, took the energy to put it out there and get the right, proper details. Worked with people, a lot of which was for free, just so that I could be able to have this this proper wisdom from God. And I had to use a lot of discernment. I had to figure out what was right and wrong. And I tried all these things. I tried the veganism. I tried the carnivore diet. I tried all of it. I can tell you, balance is key. You have a mind and a body, and if you want to accentuate the spirit, you need both. Anybody telling you otherwise is a liar. They don't know what they're talking. They're not doing it right. Even if they have millions of followers, I don't care. Just because somebody's a good salesman and they're good at business practices and they're good at stealing other people's works does not mean that they know about this process inherently. So, this is about enunciation. It's about resurrection. It gives you a story to hold on to when things feel hard. That's the whole point of this entire Christ process and the return of Christ that we're about to get into in a second here. Now, by combining modern science with timeless wisdom, you've learned now how to time your practices with your body's natural clocks and conserve your vital energy and guide it upward for renewal. You've got to ascend. Okay, that's the whole point of the ascension. This is a living cycle that you can refine every month. And in fact, if you get really good at it, it's not even based on the lunar timing anymore. The lunar timing is something that starts at puberty for all of us, when our hormones really start to drop and our thymus gland secretes all the hormones that we need, and it starts to shrink and we get taller and we get bigger, and the balls and the boobs develop, and et cetera, et cetera. You go through puberty. But since then, all right, this is something that you can train. And it's almost like a muscle that you can flex, okay? It's not something that you want to be doing all the time, but this is why those yogic masters go up into the mountains and just do this all day, every day. If it were something that you couldn't accentuate, then they wouldn't do that. They would, have their timing windows where they go back into society and then they would go up into the mountains during this sacred timing. It's about trying to cultivate it as much as possible. And the real reality of it, as I've learned, is that your mind and sometimes even your ego can accentuate this process for other people. And I think this is how some people get really wealthy even though they're not doing the right things. It's because they somehow have tapped into this process and now abundance is overflowing for them. So it's really weird. Sometimes that darkness actually brings out the light, and then of course people crash and burn, and then they have to go through that whole entire ego death kind of thing. But either way, it's just really interesting to see that some people can naturally tap into this. But it doesn't last forever if you don't keep up with the process. And trust me, I have done things where I'm like, I'm too busy in the past, and I've skipped it, especially when we were first starting this, and I wasn't really fully respecting it to the degree that I respect it now. It's very crazy what will happen. Like your whole life will start to like go through ebbs and flows. That's actually when I was getting attacked. I was putting off all the time to work on my book, and then I eventually got attacked online, and got death threats and everything from basically the LDS, the Mormon Church, and they came after me hard because they said this is wrong and this is stupid and we want to believe our fairy tales, not your fairy tales. It's like, okay, whatever. Point is, I saw extreme religious persecution from people who I thought would be my brothers in Christ, but instead they were just vipers. So anyway, I want to kind of capstone this with talking about the return of Christ for the last couple minutes here. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the advanced sacred secretion, inner alchemy, chrism, hypothesis process. May your inner temple become ever clearer, your rhythms ever steadier, and your life ever more aligned with the light you've cultivated. Cute little quip it. Okay, so the brain is our big thing here. Now you'll notice it's septenary, right? You've got the cerebellum, the occipital lobe, that's 2, parietal lobe 3, temporal lobe is 4, frontal lobe is 5, hypothalamus, the inner thalamus is 6, and then the medulla, which is 7. Okay, and the limbic system is included in that. The amygdala, the Mary amygdalin, there's a lot of etymology and stuff here that is really, really cool. But the whole point of this is that this is your heaven above and your body is the hellscape below, and the neck is the channel, the pearly gates, and you're communicating from the brain down to the body, from the body back up to the brain, and then the brain creates more substance, and that substance is the Christ. It's the Christos, it's the oil, it's the Ascension. Now let me show you what's actually going on worldwide. Here's a map. This is actually something you can learn again from my online university. Here's a map of the world. Okay, this is Cosmo-biological theory, which again something I've trademarked here, so you cannot steal this. You cannot steal this information. I know that there are some of you watching that do that. You cannot steal this. I've already trademarked all this stuff. Okay, so this is my material. Anything that has my logo, my name on it, anything is trademarked. You cannot steal it. Thank you. This is really the true functionality of how energy operates in our world. Now what you're going to see here is from the head over here in Aries all the way down to the feet in Pisces. This midsection, which is where they say that life sprang out of, this is the middle section. And even though it's not exactly in order, there's actually another picture I have which puts Cancer here and Leo here. All 4 of these energies, the 4 corners here, which align perfectly in the middle in Egypt, these are all intermixed. Because it's just like the body, how the body is intermixed with all these different organs and everything else. This is also intermixed too, and it actually creates a woman. If you understand the mechanisms of the body, it actually creates a woman. And again, I haven't really showcased this super hard on this channel, but this is something that I teach, okay? And she's sleeping, it's really cute. But the truth of this and why this even matters, I've even outlined this over the meridians of the ley lines of the planet. But basically what's going on right now, why is the Middle East, ruled by Virgo, the solar plexus right here, Israel right there, why is that like such a big deal right now without getting conspiratorial? Well, America, which is the Scorpio, the lowest brain, is in conjunction with the Middle East here, which is ruled by the Virgo, Leo, Cancer, Libra section, specifically Virgo. Like the Jewish faith, the Jewish people is ruled by the sign of Virgo, okay, by my approximation. And so these two talk to each other, Virgo and Scorpio. They talk a lot to each other. They sextile each other in astrology, number one. And number two, they both have that letter M. M is the 13th letter in the English language for secrets. So the secret of Scorpio is the sex. Obviously, there's like a lot there I don't even really have to get into. But the secret of the Virgo is that solar plexus, the baby, the Bethlehem, which means house of bread, which is the Virgo aspect of the body, and of course Christ is crucified in Golgotha. Now, which means skull. Now, the Jordan River and that whole area of the Middle East itself is like a microcosmic body, with Golgotha being towards the top, and the Mount Tabor being the navel is like towards the bottom, and then he goes south. He actually goes very south, Jesus, to go into the wilderness, right? So he actually travels along the Jordan River, which is a spine, and this is really the heart of esoteric belief. You have to understand that everything essentially spirals inward, just like we create this this oil, this seed, this Christ substance in our solar plexus every month. So too does the world create that Messiah from that part of the world every roughly 2,000 years. Okay, so this is where the return of Christ and all that talk is coming from. It's an esoteric understanding that all of these things are interconnected and interlinked. And yes, the scorpionic substance here of that sexual fluid, the energy, like the billions of dollars that the United States gives over to Israel, that energy is utilized for this process. It's utilized for this supercharging. Okay, and I don't think that the death of Charlie Kirk was like a a small thing. I think that there might be more of those types of things to come, because the Israelis right now, they're trying to summon their messianic figure, which according to the Christian Bible would be the Antichrist, and also according to the Quran would be the Antichrist as well. So it's very interconnected, very complicated, but this is essentially what's going on in the world right now. There's a 2,000-year return of the death of Christ, which happens next decade, and people are planning for that. Okay, that's my fervent belief, and I've cross-referenced this with a lot of different things, and this is our belief here. So basically, in order for all this to really operate and function, here's the reality of it: is everything is inverted in this worldscape. So in other words, whatever they believe is actually going to happen is going to happen the opposite way, and the book of Revelation already kind of covers this, but it's in most cultures too, and this actually is a really deep integrated understanding of the world and the energy at play right now. This is why they're trying to summon that figure there, okay, specifically there. That's why Jesus was born there. That's why it's a holy land, okay, because the Virgo aspect, the body, rules over where we are. We're in the Virgo supercluster, according to NASA, according to modern science. We live in the Virgo supercluster, which is the center of the universe. So we're not the center of the solar system, right? We're the center of the universe, being that we're in the middle part, which is the Virgo supercluster. And it all spirals inward. That's why that substance is created in the gut brain. It's not created necessarily in the brain, okay? This is, again, something that a lot of people don't understand. And I'm really the only one talking about this. So with that being said, again, if you're interested in learning more about this type of stuff, we have the Consciousness Activation Masterclasses. There is a 7-day free trial on my school. There's tons of these courses, as you can see here, guys. Tons of these courses. I've got psychology. I've got sexuality, art, Bible study masterclass, foundational ways to change your lifestyle and your mind and your habits, etc. So if you guys are really interested in this, please consider joining. And also, too, my Astraya AI app. Go check that out, because I'm integrating all the ways in which case you can track your cycle in that app now, and it's already live. A lot of people are using it and they're really enjoying it, but I really need a lot more support. I've already kind of hit my wall with this. I finally have submitted all the proper documentation and paperwork and everything. I got all the research out of the way. Now is the time where I'm just going to be teaching. I'm probably going to start going live on streams more. You can catch me on TikTok. You can catch me on YouTube, Instagram, all of these platforms. But please, I'm not trying to sound like a beggar, but at this stage, it's starting to become very difficult. I may have to start walking away from this. That's not a threat. I don't want to do it. It's just temporary, right? Like, I'm going to have to probably go back into the corporate world, get a regular big boy job and work that, because this just does not pay the bills. I'm sorry. This just doesn't pay the bills, guys, and I need a little bit more extra help and support and assistance. And I would really like to have you guys enumerate yourselves in this information if you're seeking. Okay, you're not going to get the real good stuff from the free stuff. I'm sorry, everybody who's just watching the free content from everybody else, this is why I've safeguarded this is why I've had to put it behind a paywall, because other people have stolen my works and they've published it as their own, and that's not fair to me. And so I finally have all the science. You've probably never heard it explained this way. If you've never heard it explained this way, that's because we're the ones who are leading the foundation for this. We're the ones who can save the world. We could stop all the bullshit that's going on in the Middle East with this information. This is what brings Christianity out into the forefront as not some jokey religion of like miracles. This is what other people are saying about Christianity as a whole. They and the Jewish faith and the Muslim faith both respectively have wonderful faiths, but they mock and ridicule Christians because they just kind of put it down and boil it down to that low level. Well, it's miracles. Well, he's the Messiah. It's like, you don't know why. This is why. Study Rosicrucianism. Study the Essenian Christians. Study all of this stuff. All right, this is not like, this doesn't take away from Jesus' story. This adds to it. Christ was the physical embodiment of a process that happens monthly in every single person's body. And through doing the activations, you become closer to God. By not doing the activations, you stray further away from God. So I know times are tough. I know there's a government shutdown. I know everybody's worried about it. Please, if you can, consider supporting me in any way possible. It really goes a long way and it really helps. But this is where I'm going to end the video for today. I love you guys. It's 40 minutes long. Wow, that's really long, but I love you guys. Thank you so much for all that you do, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. And just check me out, okay? Love you guys. I'll see you soon.